Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast, where you get to choose, change and take action to create a different today and a different future. These are my stories of choice, change and action, along with the phenomenal guests I have on here. From a really young age, I've always desired to create a change in the world. The planet has been a constant inspiration to me, and Access Consciousness has shown me the tools to know that anything is possible. And I keep choosing. What are you going to choose? Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to Choice, Change and Action podcast. So this is being live at Casa Borgoni at the castle, and also live with Joy of Business facilitator training that we have here. We have people live in the room and we have people online. And today I have here a guest that has been on my show many times, one of my favorite people in the world, incredibly creative. So welcome, Dr. David Kubes.
Hello, and thank you for having me again on this incredible podcast.
Thank you. It's always, I get so much feedback with some of the topics that we talk about. And so one of the topics that I wanted to talk to you about today, and I know that there's people live in our audience and online that have questions about this and would like to know more about it too, is being creative with taxes. Let's say it like that, because it's, all these people are going out and facilitating business done different classes. So please, if you are listening to this and you're interested in Joy of Business, there are hundreds, I'm going to say hundreds. Well, there's thousands and thousands of Access Consciousness facilitators. I have no idea how many Joy of Business facilitators there are, but they're in many different languages and all over the world. And please go to accessjoybusiness.com and find someone near you or that has an upcoming class or someone that resonates with you. And tax is one of the things that a lot of people struggle with. They have a point of view about it and a fixed point of view about it. One of the things I've heard you talk about, David, and I'd love you to expand on this, is I'm going to call it like this ecosystem in business, and how you talk about paying taxes with this energy of being really grateful and how the world requires us to do this. So can you expand on that?
Yes, of course. One of my favorite topics.
Yes.
And welcome everyone. Hello. There are two things in life that are part of life. One is one day you will die, and the other one is you have to pay taxes. I'm sorry to say that, but paying taxes is one of the results that had to show up when mankind decided to live in a community. Okay, because someone has to build the roads. We all have internet, we have electricity here. There are, I call it the common areas of life and living that someone has to pay for. So taxes are contributing to the fact that we can have it easier in our daily life and living. And paying taxes, to avoid paying taxes is not really a choice you could make, because you would cut off that part of being part of a community you live in, the city you live in. We all travel, we all enjoy life and living, and part of that needs to be financed through taxes. And I always say that, us paying taxes, we are the only income stream for our poor governments. They can't go out and create another income stream. So you're part of that ecosystem. You're the only income stream for the city you live in, for the country you live in, for the country you travel to. So taxes are feeding into that system. That doesn't exclude you from being creative with taxation. What you don't need to know about taxes is always a percentage of what you'd really make. You can never pay more taxes than money you make. It's always a percentage of. And I like to compare it to something you all do in your daily life. Have you ever gone out to a restaurant with a friend? And has that friend asked you, wait, can I have a piece of this? Can I taste this? Would you ever say no? No, you say, sure, go ahead. Have a piece, have a percentage of it. So you allow this person, okay, here, have a piece, have a bite. You don't take the whole plate and eat it. You don't do that, but you also say, no, I'm not sharing anything. Taxes is the same energy. Well, can the government have a bite? can the government have a percentage? In real life, you would never say no. You're generous. You say sure. And in real life, you wouldn't go, okay, let's take it all. So that's more or less the energy. That's how you probably can get that there is some more of gifting and receiving involved rather than, oh, the government is stealing from me. And there are people who go, no, I cannot stand that someone touches my plate. Oh, well, there are ways to not pay any taxes when you run a business. It's for, let's call it super rich, because it takes quite a lot of money to set up a system. So even that is not excluded. But this is a conversation you can have once you make, I don't know, 5-6 million net a year. Until then, I highly recommend to allow yourself to be part of that ecosystem, to contribute to the community you live in, and to allow yourself to be really creative. As I said, you are the only income stream for your authorities, for the country you live in. The more taxes you pay, the more money you contribute. I pay a lot of taxes, but I also consider myself as a VIP client for my tax office. I'm also traveling a lot with Air France, and I'm currently became a platinum member. I mean, they treat me like a king when I call them. And this is how my tax authorities should treat me, because I contribute a lot. So when I interact with my tax authorities, I don't go, oh my God, what do you want to steal from me? No, I go, hey, here's a VIP client. Can you help me? The same way when you call the hotline of your platinum service, wherever you are a member. And looking at taxation from that angle might give you more ease to not resist it anymore. Because as I said at the beginning, it's part of everyone's life and living. If everybody stopped paying taxes, we would end up in havoc. The world wouldn't function anymore. And we don't want that. We want ease with everything, including taxes.
And notice the way David talks about this. Notice how your bodies have a little bit more, ease with it. You're like, oh, I'm finally being given permission to be okay with this. Because how many of you, were brought up and you hear people always complaining about paying tax rather than being grateful for paying tax? So what if that's the first sort of energy that you start to look at? And I heard Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, years ago talking about saying, when you get your phone bill, it's like, look at your phone bill, and as you're paying it, you're like, I'm so grateful for this phone bill, I'm so grateful for my electricity bill, because you get to turn the lights on. It's like you get to make a phone call. It's like you get to be a part of all of this and receive from it. So what if you change the energy with taxes? It's like, would you make more money? And how many of you are avoiding making more money based on you've decided you don't want to pay more taxes? And everything at that is times a godzillion where you destroy and uncreate it.
Right, wrong, good, bad, POC, online shorts, boys, poets and beyond.
Yes.
Oh my God, I did it. My first new clearing statement.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Access Consciousness clearing statement. And if you've been listening to my podcast, you would have heard me talk about it, etc. But it's basically just about like, boom, pressing the delete button on all of those thoughts, feelings and emotions you have in regards to what we're talking about. So I want to cover a few different things here, of like being creative as well. But first of all, I want to sort of talk about that leap that you make into actually making more money. And I can talk on like the Australian taxation system, obviously, because that's where I'm based. And as an example, and as I always say, taxation systems anywhere in the world are created for people who have money. It's like you've got to learn, like ask questions and learn how they work and what the system is so that you can be creative with it. There is, in Australia, there's something called Goods and Services Tax, which is GST. And you only register for GST once you are making $75,000, right? And there's similar rulings in different countries. I know New Zealand has a very similar thing. I'm not exactly sure how...
Europe has exactly the same thing. Yeah.
So you only register once you make a certain amount of money. I cannot tell you the amount of people over the years I've spoken to that try and earn just under that $75,000 so they don't have to register for GST. So here's the thing though. Once you register for whatever it is in your country, your taxation system, GST, that's when you can get creative. Because in Australia, so say for example, you've got goods and services tax to GST, every hotel, every flight, everything that I, choose, every accommodation, all of that has the GST on it. But then my business, everything I'm doing, I'm hiring a venue, all of this also has the GST on it. So we do our tax, the Australian government's pretty smart like that. Every quarter you have to do it. So we basically are doing the bookwork and the paperwork for them. It used to be yearly and now it's every quarter. You have to fill in what we call the BAS statement. But if you get to play with your taxes, then quite often the GST, like maybe you've got to pay $10,000 worth of GST, but what you've chosen and created over here, it counteracts it. And it's like, so that is one of the first steps on how you can get creative with tax. And please, if you in your country and you are trying to earn below an amount so that you can, I want to say it's like be safe with it, like rather than explore the systems and the adventure that you can have with creative accounting. Will you please destroy and uncreate that?
Right, wrong, good, bad, POC, POC, all nine shorts, boys, poets, and beyonds.
Yay. So does anyone have any questions so far? Bit of an odd podcast because we've got people online and in the room.
It's not only the GST or the VAT, it's just dealing with taxes. In every country in the world, there is this minimum amount. In Europe, it's 10,000 euro. If you earn less than 10,000 a year, I don't know how people survive, but obviously you can. You don't have to deal with taxes. And a lot of people go, oh, I don't want to go beyond that limit, beyond the next step, because then I have to deal with it. And as I said, I like to give you examples from daily life. This is the kind of flying below the radar. If you want to travel the world, flying below the radar, how long will it take you? How much fun would that be?
It's living on a poverty line.
Yeah, it's just avoiding and not dealing with it. If you want that life that you truly desire, that, okay, let's fly above the radar, let's be seen, let's shine, let's sparkle out there, let's not be afraid of anything, just go it, jump off that cliff and dive into that, I call it beautiful adventure of international taxation systems. That's what it is.
And that's what it is. Oh, and in saying that too, one of the things I have as my bank account, it's called Joy of Taxes. And with my banking system, I have, I had a lot of companies and a lot of trusts and they own different things and the way I set it up. And I set it up like that because I've got, I'm under the highest tax rate that you can be in Australia, which is 46 cents in the dollar. So my personal tax is 46 cents in the dollar. So then what I do is that's when you get to play. And I offset things. So a company tax in Australia is 27%. It's or trust, you actually don't pay tax on a trust, but at the end of the financial year, you must divvy out the money. It has to go somewhere. So it has to either go to your personal tax or it goes to, a company, etc. And that's where you get creative as well. And you've got to start looking at what is it that you'd like to create in life? Because if you're looking at getting a mortgage, you want to buy a house or something like that, then your tax has to look a certain way. Your paperwork has to look a certain way. It's not going to do any good if you're earning 20,000 and under. The bank's going to be like, I'm not, lending you money to buy a house. So then be aware of what future it is you'd like to create and then have some consults, meet with your accountant. It's or, meet with a mortgage broker. A mortgage broker is, I think they're, how do you put them? They're in the dodgy category of being, but they're a mortgage broker, but they'll work it out for you and go, what do you want my financials to look like? And then they can talk to your accountant and then you can work out, okay, what do we need to offset? How do we need to work this so that I can create what it is that I'm actually asking for. So there's different ways, to go about things. Yeah. So we have a question in the room, ladies and gentlemen, with Mr. Christopher Hughes.
First of all, I just want to say thank you so much, especially some of the things you said, David, gave me a totally new perspective on this, and I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Very welcome.
I'm definitely not flying under the radar, and I've been adding more and more to my knowledge and awareness of the taxation systems, which has been great. And I've seen both of you choose this more and more and more all the time. 2 questions for you. Where would you go and what have you done to educate yourself more and more? My second question is, when does creativity become criminal?
Never. Okay, you go for the first question.
Let me give you a little more.
When you get caught. No.
I was looking at, say, in Australia, we have this double taxation system, so to speak, whereby you've earned all this money in your company, but then if you move it out of your company into your personal name, you pay taxes on it twice. And I was speaking to David about this, and he said, well, you have to learn the different things that you can write off and increase those write-offs and tax deductions so that so much of your life becomes a business expense, quote unquote. And
yes.
What I would like to know more of is, where do you find out what you can do and what really is...
You start chatting to people that you know. I mean, okay, so I can talk to Australia because I know that ruling. So 50 kilometers outside of your primary place of residence is pretty much claimable. Anything. So if you go somewhere else, like, you know, you live in Queensland, you go to Melbourne, what you could do is go to your local supermarket and you could buy some gift vouchers at the local Coles. That's like $140, $260 or something like that, right? So then you go back home and you use them to buy your groceries, but that's now a tax deduction based on, sometimes I get a little bit like, should we be talking about this out loud? That's now a tax deduction based on that was in Melbourne, you know, or it's like, you have classes, right, Chris? Yeah. So do your classes require a lot of snacks?
A lot of snacks.
A lot of snacks. Okay, I'm glad you're hearing me. I have a friend who, if you are a client of theirs, Christmas is fabulous. Because they have gift vouchers so every country is different as well. Like in Australia, you can give staff a certain amount of money, and I can't remember what it is, but it's not that much. Like if you're a staff member, you can't give a high price as a tax deduction. But your clients, you can give pretty much anything. So I could be buying you all, because you're clients of mine, I could be buying you all gift vouchers for $1,000 a pop at Gucci. Will you receive that?
Yes.
That's up to me, you know, and it's like, so there's a lot of things like that. So part of the tax planning thing that I would do too is I do tax planning, right? And in Australia, the end of the tax year is the end of June. So 1st of July is the beginning of the new financial year. So I will actually do a tax planning session with my accountant around November, December, because that is a time that you can get creative. Christmas, right? And then I would do another tax planning session probably around March and just seeing how has the year gone? Like what's happening? Do I need to, like if I'm making more money, it's like, and the last couple of years have been really interesting because the expenses haven't been high, but the cash flow has been coming in. It's like, you know, that's your first world problem is you have more cash flow and little expenses. So then you're like, okay, so what can I have, you know, as an expense? And so a lot of the times I will book flights for things that are, you know, in the future, but book it in, you know, in this financial year. Now, that's just delaying taxes as well. And David mentioned something about not avoiding taxes. Mm-hmm. And to me, when you can delay taxes and get creative and have an outsource of even creating more businesses, like I recently opened up Antiques and Possibilities, a great outlet for, you know, many different, you know, things and how you can work that and play with that. But you've got to have the cash flow, right? One of the most important things is cash flow. If you have no cash flow, it's not as easy to be creative.
Yes. Well, what I would say when you ask the question, when does creativity become illegal? I always say, don't be greedy with taxes. Once you get greedy, it gets into criminal.
It's a different energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Because as I said, if you go out with a friend and have dinner and can I have a bite? And you say no, would that friend enjoy going out to dinner with you? So if you are unwilling to give the government part of it, and the more that, you know, for example, in my country, I pay 55% of my income. So more than 50% tax. Okay. And I still, every quarter, I have to make a prepayment towards future taxes in the amount of 100,000 euros every 3 months. This is why I consider myself a VIP client. So if I go and buy a gift voucher from Armani, that I say that was for a client and then I used the voucher for myself to buy a suit, that's not really an issue. 5,000 euros compared to 100,000 every quarter. So it has to be somehow in a relation.
Yeah.
If you don't pay any income tax and the auditor sees gift vouchers and champagne and whatever, it's kind of very obvious what you're doing. And that's probably the word that comes up is this generosity of spirit, even with the tax authority. So the more taxes you pay, the more you can allow yourself regarding creativity. And it's actually more fun. I mean, to look at all these possibilities. I mean, I, for example, have a lot of rental properties. I buy apartments, I renovate them, I furnish them, and then I rent them out. What's the benefit of that? When I need a new kitchen, I just put it on one of the rentals.
Me too.
Yeah, but
this is really helpful.
My tenants, okay, there's a 10% VAT on the rent that I pay. So I'm contributing. It's more gifting and receiving. And I do allow myself these stuff where an accountant would say, oh my God, don't do this if they ever catch you. Well, there's so much other stuff to look at. There's so much income. There's so much going on that
you're paying a lot of tax
matter.
anyway. Same thing. I pay a lot of tax. It's like, so then it becomes, like you said, it becomes fun and joyful when you get to play with it, and everybody's playing with it. And it's that energy. You'll know when you're doing it from greed. And I've seen some people do so much to avoid tax that the energy that they are putting on avoiding tax, I'm like, whoa, how much could you be creating?
Well, what I'm realizing from this conversation is I'm like running through the figures in my head, and I'm realizing that I'm paying about 15% of my gross in tax, which is actually, compared to the tax bracket I'm in.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Not bad.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah, 15%. It's great.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fabulous. And the first question you asked too, educating yourself. My father was a chartered accountant, so I actually grew up with him, with bookwork and old school. Like, you didn't have Xero, you didn't have QuickBooks or anything like that. Like, he had, and it was one of my first jobs, like, because over summer, if I wanted to buy something, he'd say, well, come in and do some hours of the bookwork, right? And the bookwork with clients, you had those big books and all the receipts, and you'd have to write it out, and then you'd have to get like your adding machine and, add it and then cross out it and do all of that. So I learned actually how to keep books very old school from a really young age. And Dad was, he had other businesses, and he would always be involved in something different. So I watched how he did that. I did resist it for a long time, like looking at taxes and looking at finances. And at one stage, we had this, because he was doing my tax, and he drew me this graph because I just didn't want to look at it. And he said, Simone, what do you see your business as? And I said, creative, like being creative. And he said, okay. So he drew me this graph, and he drew like this big part of the pie was looking at your finances and the taxes, etc. And then, creative. And I said, that's not my graph. This is my graph, and I crossed out the tax, and I said, it's all creative. And he looked at me and he went, you can't have this if you're not willing to be aware of this. And I was so pissed off because I was like, I knew he was right and I knew he was correct. And from that moment, I did start educating myself on bookwork, taxes, all of that. And I say to you all, ask for a profit and loss statement. And if you don't know how to read it, ask your accountant or your bookkeeper and say, will you show me line by line, like what my chart of accounts is? Why do I have this here? Blah, blah, blah. Because you are the one that has the information about your business, and you are the one that has the information about you. So when you give that information to a bookkeeper or an accountant, then that's when you get to collaborate and create together. And you don't have to know how to read a profit and loss. Like, it's not like you weren't born knowing that. So if you don't know, ask a question. And also, one of the things I always do with my accountant, because I'm a very visual person, so if you show me something, I'll remember. So I've got a whiteboard in her office, and I'm like, can you draw it up on the whiteboard, and she'll draw how things work and da-da-da. And then I'll take a picture, and I'm like, okay, cool, I've got it. Like, if you don't understand it, ask a question. It doesn't mean you're an idiot. You're an idiot for not asking a question, is what I would say.
And please don't hand your business over to your accountant. Oh, you deal with
Yes.
it. If you allow the accountant to
Yeah.
run your business, it will always be small, controllable, and mediocre to the degree that it's disgusting. Okay.
So how many of you have handed your business over to someone that you perceive has more authority because they're an accountant or a bookkeeper or know about finances? And
or just because you don't want to deal with it because it's nasty taxes.
And nasty taxes. And everything that is times a godzillion where you destroy and uncreate it.
Right, wrong, good, bad, pop, all 9 shorts, boys, poets, and beyonds.
Yeah. And then educating yourself too. I'm a big believer in find somebody who's successful in your country, like in your taxation system.
Oh, wait. It's way easier. Google it. Okay? Just Google it. You don't need to hire an accountant. Just start the research and Google it. Especially when you run an excess business. Do you actually know what a business expense is? Everything that supports or promotes, sets up, or runs your business is a business expense. So every time you take out a friend for lunch or dinner, if you claim it as a business expense, you did talk about business. And you're not even lying to them just because you had fun. The tax rules don't say you're not allowed to have fun. No, if you talk about business, it's a business expense. And you talking to someone is always creating more. So especially you with the excess business, every breath you take can be a business expense. How that works in detail, this is where you Google it. Okay? But looking at, hiring people, renting a venue, going to dinner, your telephone bill, the internet, everything you need, your Zoom account, your Stream account, your camera, everything in this room is a business expense. That would be a great homework, right? Make a list and look what is a business expense and how can you use it as a tax deduction in your country.
Well, even everyone online now, right? It's like even at home, because you're here and you're training to be a Joy Business Facilitator trainer, it's like, how much of your home are you using currently for work?
The room you sit in,
Yeah, so you work that out and you can go, okay, so 35% of my home is used for work. Okay, so 35% of my electricity, of the rent, of the anything what it is
of the
is
cleaning
now
lady.
claimable. Yeah, the cleaning lady, because you've got to have a clean office, right?
The garden, the flowers.
So what about cash? And what do you use your cash for? And what don't you use your cash for?
Cash? What's illegal with cash? Well, where did you buy this lie?
No, I'm just curious.
I'll say one thing. My father, who was an accountant, always said, Simone, keep cash as cash.
So what there was a break in the line.
Yes.
What did you say?
I don't know.
Well, let's move on. Well, cash is not illegal. Okay. When I came to Milan, just now when I landed, at the airport, you do this cash checks. Italy has made cash illegal. You're not allowed to pay a bill greater than €3,000 in cash. Not that
you can if you're an Australian citizen.
No.
Yes, you can.
No.
No, you can. I did it the other day.
No,
I have to sign a document and with my passport number and everything saying that I do not live in the EU, etc. And there's only a very few countries you can, but from Australian citizen you can. I was like, sure, I'll do that. I was shopping for clothes and it was like, so I paid €5,000 without.
Oh, that's good. Well, I came with €5,000 knowing it's illegal to pay more than 3 in Italy. And they stopped me and said, hey, well, what are you doing here? No, I come for business, over Easter for sure. And then he said, do you have cash? And I said, yes, 5,000. And then he said, do you have any other, do you have dollars? I said, yes, I have a few left. Opened my wallet. There were $200 from my last travel. And he just said, okay, because I didn't consider it illegal.
Yeah.
And when they asked you where the cash comes from my savings. I inherited from my grandmother. She had it under her pillow.
But it's also like...
Which is actually true.
Yeah.
It was the cash from my aunt.
Yeah. And the cash I bought clothing with was from my mum. Who gave me a gift before I left.
I love my parents and my family.
I love my parents too and how generous they are.
It was, she gave it to me and then she died. Sorry. What else do you want to know?
Yeah. Look, it's the point of view you have and the energy you have around things too. So, but I just want to add, because what I was going to say was find someone in your country that is successful and take them out to dinner. Ask them, how'd you create this? You know, it's like for me, you know, a lot of you guys would have heard Steve and Shatissa Bowman were two people that, you know, they're in Australia, they're very successful. And it started off by me asking them questions when we were in India once, and we were sitting at this table having tea, and then they had a napkin and they got a pen out and they started writing on this napkin, like what companies and trusts they had. Because to me, it was like, can I even have a company? Like, you know, so many people do under sole trader, etc. And they were like, yes. And then they started talking to me about that. And then every time I met up with them, we called it Financial 101, and we would have lunch or dinner or champagne or whatever, and, you know, and ask them questions, like ask them questions, ask them questions, ask them questions, ask them questions. Like I said before, you're not an idiot for asking questions. And I would ask them questions, and then it was like, oh, I could do this, and I could do this, and I could do this. And there's so many things that are set up. Like, I mean, Chris, I know you've done this now as well, based on, you and I went out and had lunch one day in Brisbane, and you said to me, can I ask you a question? And I said, yeah. And you said, what's tax planning? And we spoke about that. And then I told you about, there's a company that you can open up in Australia called a Division 7A, right? Now, this again might be similar in other countries, but it is a Division 7A company is a company that you can use to offset your taxes, right? But here's the thing. I think this is very funny. Many, many years ago, you never had to put the cash into the company, right? You could just be on paper. So people were like laundering money left, right, and center, basically, just going, oh, well, this company's owed $2 million, but you never see it. So for me, one of the companies I have is called Ease, Joy and Glory Proprietary Limited, and that's my Division 7A company. So I can offset money into that. Now, Ease, Joy and Glory now bought a house for $1.1 million. That is one of my investments. But that means I get to offset all that money into this company that now has an investment, right? And it's like, I buy jewelry through Ease, Joy and Glory Proprietary Limited for my shop, Antiques and Possibilities. So it's a tax deduction, it offsets it, etc. So, but
when you travel, you fly first class, and when you travel, you stay in the expensive hotels because you are part of the big economic engine that creates so much cash flow in all the other small and medium-term businesses. This is why it's not wrong to do that, because the more money you kind of get away from being put in towards taxes, you spend it for living anyway. So that's why it's not
private
illegal.
Jets now.
I know. So, and this is what the tax authorities also know. Okay. There are those who are so greedy who wouldn't spend a cent, and these are the ones who end up in jail for being, for any tax fraud. But if you allow yourself to be part of that big economic system, including taxes, you're not kind of putting it away, sitting on it. No, you spend it somewhere else, even with the cash.
I spend a lot of my money on a lot of, I stay in really nice hotels. I do. I fly
so it's the same way, because this is also part of the income. So part you pay to taxes, but another part you upgrade your life when you have more cash available. So this is why it's this idea that every time you sneak in an invoice and create a tax write-off that actually isn't, it's not wrong. Okay. This is not being criminal, because the more money you save on taxes, or the more tax creative you are, the more money you will spend on other stuff, which then contributes to other businesses, and they pay taxes. Every time you buy a drink, you buy a ticket, there is VAT, there are taxes attached to that. So income tax is not the only tax you pay. So it's a way bigger ecosystem. That's what I wanted to say before. Ask someone questions, be excited about it. You might wonder, how can I be excited about such a complicated, boring topic? Well,
it's not.
For many people it is. And the way I got excited was, okay, look at your next trip, look at your next creation, look at your next day, and play the game with yourself. Okay, where do you spend your money on? On everything, okay? Everything. And then play that game with yourself. How can I turn this into a tax write-off? How can I turn this into a tax write-off? When everybody's sitting here and watching online, the computer you bought, the mics you bought, the ring light you bought, the internet you pay, the hotel you stay at, the room you sit in, you need to get home somehow. The person who drives you to the airport, the rental car, the coffee at the airport, everything can be a tax write-off, and you're not doing any criminal act or being illegal. You're being creative because you will get out here and start a business.
Every single Access Consciousness class you go to
and even
is
if
a
you
tax write-off.
don't have a business yet, most of the countries allow you 6 to 12 months upfront to already accumulate tax expenses to offset towards future income. So even if you don't have a business yet, collect all these invoices. Start that challenge with yourself. How can I turn this into an income stream? And a tax, a tax expense. Start that now, then you are prepared, and then you will pay less taxes. But don't avoid them.
The joke was when I was growing up, because my dad was like, the first sentence that ever came out of our mouths was like, "Can I have a receipt, please?" Because Dad would say, "Get a receipt for everything."
Yes.
Like, get a receipt for absolutely everything, because I can throw it away if I'm not going to use it, but get a receipt. So anywhere we would go, he'd be like, "Do you have receipts?" And be like, "Yes, Dad, I have receipts," And even then, like, there's a rule in Australia that you can pay a certain amount of money to your kids that is tax-free. And it used to be thousands of dollars. I think it's like $400 a pop now. And I remember when I became aware of this, and I said to Dad, "Oh, so every year you're paying, that money's going to me, so you have to pay tax." And he was like, "Yeah." And I went, "But I don't get the money?" And I was like, looked at him, and
he was so creative.
Like, maybe the money's spent on your school fees, Simone, But it's like, but there's, just ask a question. Like, at the moment, I go to Pilates, when I'm home twice a week. I have private instructor, etc. That's now a tax deduction based on the way the invoice is written, because I do body classes. So it's like, and I have asked so many things, like, can this be a tax deduction? Can this? And my accountant just goes, "No, Simone." And I'm like, well, I'm trying to give it my best shot, It's like, ask, because if you don't ask, you will not receive the information. And it's different in every country, and there's a lot of really similar things too.
Yeah, and I would recommend when you talk to your own accountant or to officials like chartered accountant, always ask for a friend.
Well, and actually, do you know that the trick I do
yeah.
with my accountant is I go, "What would you do?" Because if you don't ask them a question, they won't give you the information. And like recently, I'm unraveling a whole lot of stuff financially, and we came up with we still need to chat.
Yep.
Came up with 4 or 5 different scenarios, and I was like, this, and I put in her head, what would she do? And she went, "If it was me, I would choose this one." And I went, "Great." So I got my information. Yeah.
And there are some things that your accountant really shouldn't know. You put them in trouble if you tell them what exactly you're doing. So use them as a source of information and do it the way it works for you. Most of the accountants have their really limited posted stamp controllable life. Don't use them as a source of information, but don't hand them over your business. And don't take everything granted they tell you or they recommend you. You can still do it your way. The way I deal with my accountant, "Thank you for the information. Now I know how to put it in so you don't have an issue."
Yeah.
So be kind to your accountant as well. Don't tell them everything.
Okay. Is there any more questions? What I might do is we can talk afterwards as well, but I might just say thank you so much and end this podcast now. So thank you, David, for being here, and thank you everyone for being here, live and online as well, and being a part of this. And I really hope this helps. And I'm so grateful, David, the way you started this and the way you really helped me too. I know that Chris mentioned that when I first heard you talk about this, of like that ecosystem and how you are such a contribution from every choice you make. From paying taxes to, traveling first class, to going to an expensive hotel, to buying a nice bottle of wine or whatever it is. It's like, the way you see that is very unique and different. And I'm asking, if we all looked at the world like that and we all looked at our businesses like that, then what could we truly create, and what could we be an invitation and an inspiration to? So thank you.
Thank you.
And again, if you are listening to this and you would like to find a Joy Business facilitator, please go to accessjoybusiness.com, or also you can go to accessconsciousness.com. And like I said, there's thousands of facilitators and practitioners all over the world, and you can change anything in your life that you think is not working for you. You just got to choose. Thanks for joining me. Bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite listening platform to get notified of new episodes. We read all the reviews, so if there's any topic you would like to hear about, let us know. If you'd like to know more about the tools, information, and classes mentioned in the podcast, head on over to SimoneMilasas.com and follow me on Instagram at SimoneMilasas, or the podcast has its very own link on Instagram at Choice, Change, and Action. Don't forget, you can download the show notes. And lastly, have way too much fun today.